How's everybody doing? We are kicking off a brand new series called Lost and Found, and this will lead us up right into Easter. And so let me ask you this question. You can pause the video. Have you ever lost something? Like maybe think back, there's something critical or something so important to you that you've ever lost. So like pause this video, talk with your friends, talk with your family about maybe something you really cared about that you lost. Well, obviously, there's a lot of reasons why we lose things. Sometimes we lose things because we get distracted. Sometimes we lose things because we get careless. Sometimes we just lose things because we're pure lazy and we don't want to go back and get it, whatever it might be, regardless of what it is. I can remember one time me and Caitlin got engaged and the ring was just a little too big, and she was outside and she did this for whatever reason, and she lost her engagement ring. And so we literally took a comb, like a hairbrush, and we combed through the yard until we found it. You would think, oh, that'd be easy to find. It took us like an hour and a half to find it. So it's crazy. But there's sometimes though when maybe you get lost, and maybe you want to get lost. Maybe you've gone to a new city and you kind of just want to explore. So let me ask you this question. You can pause the video and talk about it. If you could get lost anywhere in the world for a day, where would you get lost? What would you want to find? What would you want to do? So pause this video and talk about that. So maybe for some of you it's like New Zealand, maybe for some of you it's Hawaii, who knows, Disney World, get lost in Disney World, who knows. There's a lot of different places, but we all know that it's a lot of times super frustrating to get lost, right? Maybe even for you, you've experienced that with your mom and dad. You're on a trip and your dad he's not lost, but he's lost and your mom's yelling at him and he's yelling back. Maybe you've been there. I know I have with my parents. And sometimes, though, we lose not only our direction, but we lose our phones, we lose keys, we lose homework, maybe, all these things. And a lot of times in the moment, it sucks. Like it's not a good feeling. But then months, weeks, years later, then it becomes less serious and more funny. Like maybe if you've ever lost your favorite stuffed animal, or maybe you lost your phone, you felt extreme worry or, oh my gosh, what's gonna happen? And then you were like, oh, it's in my back pocket the whole time. Or, oh, I remember where I put it. Whether you wander away from your parents or take a wrong turn, lose track of your friends in a crowd, it can get scary sometimes if you get lost. And so for the next few weeks, we're going to talk a lot about lost things and how they get found. But this won't be a tutorial on, all right, if you lose your phone, here's the best way to do it. Or if you lose your stuffed animal, or if you lose this, that's not what it's about. We're talking about the ways that we can get lost and how we can help others when they get lost, and how we can all get found again. And so let me ask you a couple questions. You can pause this video and think about it. What are some ways that people can get lost spiritually? Like what are some ways people can get lost spiritually? And then what are some reasons why a follower of Jesus might wander away from God? So answer those two questions, pause this video. So I remember very vividly when I was in college, I went to UNC Charlotte, and I did religious studies as a minor and sociology as my major. And I remember sitting in my first religious studies class. It was an Old Testament class. And I remember sitting there and the teacher beginning to unravel and say, the entire New Testament is not always accurate. There's a ton of contradictions in the Bible, et cetera, et cetera. And I'm sitting there thinking, what? Like I've grown up as a pastor's kid, so I was always told, hey, the Bible is truth and it's nothing wrong with it. And I believed that. But when I got to college, it was like, well, why do I believe it? And I had this like pause, and I can just remember for a couple weeks just questioning everything that I had grown up believing. If this professor who's teaching at college is saying these things, man, maybe there is some validity to it. And for a moment, I got lost of, do I actually believe this or not? And the reality is, you and I were created to be close to God, who made us and love us. But there's some of us, we don't understand or know the Creator yet. For some of us, we know Jesus, but we wander away from him. For some of us, we know Jesus, but we struggle with what we believe, like I did in college and with difficult situations. But in all of these situations, sometimes for us, we can feel pretty lost. And if you drive or if you walk or bike, you've probably used Google Maps or your phone. It's kind of like a picture like this. And what happens is this picture, you put in 2 locations, like I put from my house to my favorite coffee shop, so don't judge me. But it tells us what to do. It tells us how to get there. Sometimes if there's traffic, it tells us how to reroute and avoid that. It helps us avoid danger. It let us, hey, you have 15 minutes to your destination, and we all know what that means. Hurry up and try to beat 15 minutes, right? But it automatically reroutes us when we make a wrong turn. And so wouldn't that be nice if the app did that for us in life, right? Like if we had an app that helped us, right, tell us exactly what decisions to make. Hey, don't do this, but do this, go this direction. Or help us avoid setbacks of, hey, if you choose this route in life, you're gonna hit major setbacks, and say, oh, okay, I'll shift to this route. Or letting us take a peek into the future so we don't have to wonder what's happening next. Wouldn't that be awesome? Or automatically tell us when we're about to make a bad decision. Hey, idiot, stop, right? I would love for that to happen. It would be nice if the app told us how to do that with our faith as well. But let's be honest, like sometimes faith can be confusing and faith can be hard. And sometimes you feel like you're wandering away from God, but you're not sure how or why you're doing it. And maybe it seems like you had an awesome day yesterday with your relationship with God, but today for some reason it's just completely off. And other times you feel like you've wandered away from your faith and no one has taken notice, not even God. And if you've ever felt far from God for whatever reason, you might find yourself wondering, all right, who screwed up here? Did I fail God? Did God fail me? And what do I do from here? And so for the next 4 weeks, we're going to look at this one chapter in the Bible. Yep, one chapter found in Luke, and it's chapter 15. And this chapter recounts a series of stories that Jesus told about things that were lost and then found. And each story communicates different truths. And so these stories aren't historical stories, they're parables. And Jesus told a parable to help us understand, right? So it's an earthly story to understand like a heavenly thought or teaching. And so what I want you to do is I want you to pause this video and read Luke chapter 15, verses 1 and 2. So you might have this question, who are the Pharisees and why are they so mad? Well, the Pharisees of Jesus' day, they were religious leaders that were very, very much focused on following God's rules. So much, hundreds of laws that they followed. And what happened was, like, these laws weren't bad. They helped protect the people. They helped keep them safe, stay close to God. But what happened was these Pharisees would begin to see following these rules as elevating them higher than other people. And in Jesus' opinion, the Pharisees had taken things too far because they became arrogant, self-righteous, and even dismissive of people who weren't necessarily able or following the rules as best as they were. And the Pharisees were so obsessed with following God's law that they missed God's heart within the law. It wasn't about doing the law to earn God's love. It was about following the law out of love for God. And so Jesus was often angry with these Pharisees because they had a lack of love and mercy and compassion for other people because they thought they were better than them. And to the Pharisees, Jesus always seemed to be breaking God's rules because he would do things like heal people on the Sabbath, which was the day of rest, or share a meal with a sinner, someone who wasn't following all the rules. And instead of dismissing the Pharisees for being jerks, Jesus actually takes the time and he tries to explain to them 3 different stories to help them understand. And the first one is about a missing sheep. And as we read the story here in a second, let me show you, this is what the scenery would have looked like in Israel. And what you're seeing now on the screen is Judean desert. And you can kind of understand how sheep might go missing because everything kind of blends in together. And so we don't know how the sheep wandered off. We don't know how sheep go astray. But all we know is there's a lost sheep. So pause this video, and what I want you to do is read verses 3 through 7 of Luke 15. So you get it, right? Lost sheep. Maybe it got distracted. Maybe it walked away. It's because it saw another sheep walk away. Maybe it was just trying to run away. Either way, the sheep found itself far away from the shepherd and from safety. So imagine how difficult it would be to find one sheep in that desert, the picture I just showed you, like filled with valleys, steep cliffs. It would take time and effort and energy and a lot of attention. And if I were a shepherd, I want to be honest, I don't know if I would put forth all that effort for one sheep. But here's what the shepherd in Jesus' story did. Even though he had 100 sheep to take care of, he noticed when one was missing. And I even imagine he probably knew which sheep it was. He probably had a name for it. And even though he knew it would be difficult, he searched for the sheep until he found it. He never gave up. And lastly, when he found a sheep, he didn't say, hey, you're a stupid sheep, or made fun of the sheep even more, or even punished the sheep. He picked it up and he carried it back to the rest of the sheep, to the home. And so when you think about this, when you think about this story, what does this story about lost sheep tell us about God? And in what ways could you maybe relate to the lost sheep? So pause this video right now and answer those two questions. What in Jesus' story, like about the lost sheep, tell us about what God is like? And how can you maybe relate to the lost sheep? Pause this video right now. So what does this parable mean? What does it mean, and who is the sheep? Pause this video. I know I just did it real quick, but it's all right. It's going to be good. Read Isaiah chapter 53, verse 6, and then we'll talk more. Pause this video. So what it tells us is if you and I are the wandering sheep, Jesus says that God is the good shepherd. God is the good shepherd and Jesus is God, because when I feel lost, when you feel lost, guess what? Jesus notices you. Like that's the key phrase today. When you feel lost, Jesus notices you, right? Like going back to my story in college when I was just thrown for a loop, when I heard all these things in my class. Like I remember for me, like I went home and immediately started talking to my dad. And maybe you have a parent that you can go when things are tough or you feel like you're struggling in your faith, and you can go to them and talk to them and they can help you. And my dad helped me do that. But I also remember I had joined a campus ministry also, and I was able to get around a group of my friends to help me process my questions and process my doubts and, in a sense, my like lostness of why am I believing this? And so I surrounded myself with people who would help me grow in my relationship with Jesus. And so some of you, we're all at sometimes like the sheep in the story. We wander away from the safety of God, from our shepherd. And maybe we wander from God because we don't know Jesus is our good shepherd in the first place. Like we don't even recognize that Jesus cares about us and loves us. Like maybe you're out in the desert wondering, and this is the first time you realize that Jesus is saying, hey, I want to take care of you. I want to be there for you. Sometimes we get lost because we get distracted. Maybe we intend to stay close to Jesus, but we see something over there that's interesting, and we're like, maybe I should go that way. Maybe for us, we get confused. Like we have questions, we have uncertainties, and guess what? That's okay. That sometimes will lead us away, but our questions don't have to lead us away from Him. In fact, they can actually bring us closer to Him as we discover how good God is. And then sometimes, let's be honest, we just walk away. Sometimes we walk away for numerous reasons on purpose. We turn our back on God because we feel like a prayer should have been answered a different way, or we didn't get what we want. Regardless, just like sheep, you and I are human. And God knows that we are prone to getting lost. And that's why Jesus describes the Good Shepherd the way he does. Even though God has created hundreds and billions of people, God knows each and every one of us by name. He knows us. So when you go missing, when you get lost, God notices. God notices, and you're not insignificant to him. And even though convincing us to come back to God is difficult, Jesus never stops searching for us. Jesus never stops pursuing us. He never gave up on you, and he never will. And when you and I finally realize we're lost and need God's help, God doesn't yell at us and tell us how dumb we are and how long it took us to come back. God celebrates, and Jesus will always lovingly carry us back to safety. So just like the shepherd in the parable notices us missing, Jesus notices you. And so you are sitting here thinking like how maybe you've wandered away and no one's really noticed, but I'm here to tell you today that Jesus has noticed. And maybe you feel like no one in the entire world notices you, but I'm here to tell you people notice you. Jesus notices you. And maybe you're still trying to figure out what you think about God. Guess what? He still notices you even in your questions and your doubt. So just so you know, you matter, you have value, and Jesus notices you. I hope you have a great week. We'll see you next week.